Chapter 1. Arrival. The wrought iron gates of Crestwood University loomed large, a monument to generations of wealth and tradition. For Elijah Eli Vance, they represented something more. A hard-won opportunity. Clutching his worn leather messenger bag, a gift from his grandmother, Eli stepped onto the manicured lawns. The crisp autumn air carrying the scent of fallen leaves and simmering anticipation. He had earned his place here. A full scholarship. A beacon of hope snatched from the unforgiving streets of Philadelphia's Kensington neighborhood. He envisioned late nights in the library, engaging debates with brilliant minds, and a future sculpted by dedication and intellect. He was ready for the academic rigor, the challenging coursework, the sheer weight of expectations. What he wasn't prepared for was the silent judgment, the subtle stares, the palpable sense of not belonging. As he navigated the bustling campus, a sea of Patagonia jackets, designer jeans, and perfectly coiffed hair, Eli felt a prickle of unease. He wore his best, a navy blazer purchased from a thrift store, pressed meticulously by his mother the night before. It was a world away from the casual opulence that seemed to radiate from every corner of Crestwood. A low whistle cut through the air. A group of young men, lounging on the steps of what Eli later learned was the Alpha Sigma Tau fraternity house, turned their attention to him. Well, drawled a voice thick with sarcasm. Looks like someone took a wrong turn. Community college is that way, buddy. The speaker was tall, blonde, and oozed a confidence that bordered on arrogance. His name, Eli would soon discover, was Preston Worthington III, heir to a vast family fortune and self-proclaimed king of Crestwood. Preston's friends, a chorus of identical smirks, echoed his sentiment. Yeah, maybe he's looking for the janitorial services office. Ilias Yov Titaneth. He had faced worse than condescending remarks. The streets of Kensington were a breeding ground for cruelty, and he had learned to navigate them with a steely resolve. He kept his gaze fixed on the path ahead, ignoring the jeers, his shoulders squared, his head held high. Let them underestimate me, he thought. Let them think I'm just another scholarship kid out of his depth. Inside his messenger bag, nestled amongst textbooks and notebooks, were 3 acceptance letters from prestigious universities and a collection of medals from various martial arts competitions. He had spent years honing his skills at the renowned Steel Dragon Dojo, transforming his body into a finely tuned weapon, a testament to discipline and unwavering focus. The whispers followed him into the lecture hall for his introductory physics 101 class. Probably an affirmative action case, Preston muttered loud enough for several students to hear. But he can barely spell quantum. The professor, Dr. Eleanor Harding, a renowned physicist with a no-nonsense demeanor, silenced the murmurs with a sharp glare. "Welcome, everyone," she announced, her voice resonating through the room. "Today, we delve into the fascinating world of quantum entanglement." She launched into a complex explanation, peppering her lecture with equations and theoretical concepts that left many students scratching their heads. Preston, predictably, sat back, radiating boredom. Dr. Harding paused, surveying the room. "Now, can anyone explain the implications of Bell's theorem in relation to non-locality?" Silence. A few tentative hands fluttered, but quickly retreated. Preston smirked, confident that he was safe from intellectual scrutiny. Then Eli raised his hand. Dr. Harding's eyes lit up. "Yes, Mr. Vance." Eli rose, his voice clear and confident. He articulated the complexities of Bell's theorem, explaining the concepts in a way that even the most confused students could grasp. Preston's smirk evaporated, replaced by a look of stunned disbelief. The class ended, and as Eli gathered his belongings, he felt a presence looming behind him. "Scholarship kid," Preston said, his voice laced with hostility. "We have a little tradition here at Crestwood. New students have to prove they belong." Eli felt his muscles tense, not from fear, but from the instinctive reaction of years of training. He could easily disarm Preston and his cronies, but he remembered his mother's words echoing in his ears. "You're not there to fight, Elijah. You're there to win, on their terms with your mind. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to relax. "I'm just here to study," he said calmly. Preston stepped closer, his eyes narrowed. "Same as us? Don't flatter yourself. You're not exactly Crestwood material." His friend snickered, closing in on Eli. He was surrounded, trapped in a hallway that suddenly felt much smaller. Just then, a figure emerged from the crowd. It was Clara Bellwether, the editor-in-chief of the Crestwood Chronicle, the university's student newspaper. Clara, known for her sharp wit and even sharper investigative skills, had a reputation for fearlessly exposing injustice. Clara pretended not to notice the confrontation, but her phone was subtly pointed in their direction, recording every word. She was working on an exposé about the pervasive culture of privilege and entitlement at Crestwood, and Preston and his fraternity were prime subjects. Bullies never see the bigger picture, Eli thought, recognizing Clara's presence. He pulled out his own phone. "Look, guys," he said, activating the voice recorder app. "I really don't want any trouble." Preston's smile turned predatory. "Trouble? We're just having a little fun. But if you want to make it interesting." He gestured to his friends. "Let's see how tough this scholarship case really is." Chapter 2. Strategy. Later that day, Eli sat alone in the library, surrounded by towering shelves of books. He tried to focus on his physics textbook, but Preston's words kept echoing in his mind. He knew this wasn't just a random act of intimidation. It was a calculated attempt to undermine him, to make him feel unwelcome, to drive him out of Crestwood. He overheard Preston and his fraternity brothers, huddled in a corner, discussing the upcoming group project for Physics 101. "We'll make sure the scholarship kid gets stuck with the grunt work," Preston said, his voice laced with malice. "And then we'll sabotage his presentation. He'll be begging to drop the class." Ilias Meest's clincheth. He was tempted to confront them, to expose their plot, but he knew that would be playing into their hands. He needed a different strategy, a way to turn their arrogance against them. He remembered a lesson from his martial arts instructor, Master Tanaka. The greatest strength lies not in brute force, but in understanding your opponent's weaknesses. He decided to study Preston and his crew, to learn their patterns, their habits, their vulnerabilities. He observed them in the cafeteria, in the hallways, even at their raucous fraternity parties. He noticed their dependence on wealth, their reliance on connections, their utter lack of genuine effort. They cheated on exams, paid others to write their papers, and used their family influence to get ahead. Eli started documenting everything, gathering evidence of their misconduct. He knew that exposing them wouldn't be easy. Preston's family had deep ties to Crestwood, and the university administration was often reluctant to challenge the established order. But Eli was determined to fight back. He had overcome countless obstacles in his life, and he wasn't about to let a privileged bully and his cronies derail his dreams. He sought out Clara Bellwether, the student newspaper editor, and shared his concerns. Clara, intrigued by Eli's story, agreed to help him. She assigned a team of reporters to investigate Preston's fraternity and their alleged cheating ring. "This could be huge, Eli," Clara said, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "This could finally expose the rotten core of Crestwood." Eli also found an unexpected ally in Sarah Nguyen, a junior who worked in the university archives. Sarah had witnessed firsthand the prejudice and discrimination that plagued Crestwood. Her own brother had been driven out of the university 2 years earlier after being targeted by Preston and his fraternity. Sarov, di plus sumtathetik torstai Ilias pleit, provided him with valuable information about Preston's family history and their long-standing involvement in perpetuating Crestwood's elitist traditions. She showed him old yearbooks and documents that revealed a pattern of exclusion and discrimination dating back decades. "They think they own this place," Sarah said, her voice trembling with anger. "They think they can get away with anything." Eli, Clara, and Sarah formed an unlikely alliance, bound together by a shared commitment to justice. They knew they were facing a formidable opponent, but they were determined to fight for what was right. Chapter 3. Locker Room Revelation. The following morning, Eli arrived at his locker to find it plastered with printouts of scholarship requirements. It was a childish attempt at intimidation, but Eli simply ignored it. What caught his attention was an old photograph tucked in the corner. It showed the Crestwood University class of 1963, and not a single person of color was in sight. Sarah approached him, her face grim. "They did the same thing to my brother," she whispered. "He couldn't take it. He transferred out." She handed Eli a folder filled with documents and photographs, evidence of the university's long history of racial discrimination. It was clear that Preston and his fraternity were not just isolated bullies, but part of a larger system of oppression. Eli felt a surge of anger, but he knew that he couldn't let his emotions cloud his judgment. He needed to stay focused, to gather more evidence, to build a case that would be impossible to ignore. During lunch, he watched as Preston and his friends mocked another freshman, a Latino student named Miguel Ramirez. Miguel was struggling to understand a complex physics concept, and Preston was taking every opportunity to ridicule him. Eli's fists clenched beneath the table. His martial arts training screamed at him to intervene, to defend Miguel from the humiliation. But he knew that a physical confrontation would only escalate the situation. He needed to find a way to expose Preston's cruelty without resorting to violence. He pulled out his phone and opened his notes app. He began typing, documenting every word of Preston's taunts, every gesture of contempt. He knew that this evidence would be crucial in building his case. "You should just leave," a voice said behind him. It was Trent, Preston's right-hand man, trying to sound threatening. Eli turned, his eyes meeting Trent's gaze. He smiled, the kind of smile you learn after years of facing down opponents in the ring. "Thanks for the advice," he said, "but I think I'll stick around. Things are about to get really interesting." Chapter 4. The Gym Challenge. The next day, in the campus gym, the tension was palpable. Eli was going through his morning workout, a routine he had followed religiously since he was 12 years old. He focused on the rhythm of his movements, the controlled power of his body. Preston and his crew swaggered in, their eyes fixed on Eli. They saw an opportunity to humiliate him in public, to prove once and for all that he didn't belong at Crestwood. "Hey, look, boys," Preston sneered, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Trying to bulk up so you can actually belong here?" The gym fell silent. Students pretended to be focused on their workouts, but everyone was watching. This was the moment Preston had been waiting for, a chance to crush Eli's spirit. "How about a friendly competition?" Preston suggested, pointing to the boxing ring in the corner. "Winner gets respect. Loser, well, losers know where they belong." Preston, a former state boxing champion, had the advantage. He had access to the best trainers and equipment, thanks to his family's wealth. He was confident that he could easily defeat Eli. "You sure about this?" Eli asked quietly, giving Preston one last chance to back down. Preston, fueled by arrogance and a desperate need to reassert his dominance, wasn't listening. He stripped off his designer hoodie, his fraternity brothers crowding around the ring, cheering him on. The gym was packed. Word had spread quickly that a showdown was brewing. Even some of Preston's own fraternity brothers couldn't help but watch, drawn by the spectacle of a bully about to get his comeuppance. "First one to tap out loses," Preston announced, bouncing on his toes, eager to deliver the knockout blow. Ili noted, his expression calm and focused. He stepped into the ring, his heart pounding, his senses heightened. This was more than just a boxing match. It was a symbolic battle for justice, a fight against the ingrained prejudice that permeated Crestwood. Preston launched the first attack, a perfect textbook right hook. But Eli was ready. Years of training had honed his reflexes, transforming him into a formidable fighter. He moved like smoke, evading Preston's punch with effortless grace. The crowd gasped. They had expected Eli to be overwhelmed, to be easily defeated. But he was holding his own, matching Preston's every move. The fight continued, a whirlwind of jabs, hooks, and dodges. Eli, despite his smaller size, was able to anticipate Preston's attacks, using his agility and precision to counter his opponent's brute force. Preston, frustrated by his inability to land a solid punch, grew increasingly reckless. He abandoned his technique, relying on wild swings and uncontrolled aggression. Eli seized his opportunity. He sidestepped another of Preston's punches and delivered a swift, calculated kick to his opponent's legs. Preston stumbled, his balance lost, and crashed to the mat. The gym erupted in cheers. Eli had won. He had defeated the bully, not through brute force, but through skill, discipline, and unwavering determination. Miguel, the Latino student who had been harassed by Preston, started live streaming the fight on his phone. Sarah, from the archives, recorded the event as well. Even some of Preston's own fraternity brothers couldn't resist capturing the moment of his downfall. The video went viral, spreading like wildfire across campus. Eli became an overnight sensation, a symbol of resistance against the culture of privilege and entitlement that had long plagued Crestwood. Chapter 5. Midterm Partners. But Eli knew that the fight was far from over. Preston, humiliated and enraged, would be seeking revenge. He was a wounded animal, and wounded animals were the most dangerous. The next day, in advanced physics, Professor Harding announced the midterm project partners. Surprise, surprise, Eli was paired with Preston. Remember, Professor Harding said, emphasizing the importance of the project. This is worth 40% of your grade. The look Preston gave Eli could freeze hell over. It was a promise of retribution, a vow to make Eli pay for his victory in the boxing ring. After class, Preston cornered Eli in the computer lab. Listen, scholarship, he hissed, his voice dripping with venom. I don't care how good you are at fighting. One phone call from my father to the dean, and you're gone. Eli remained calm, his eyes fixed on the screen of his laptop. He pulled up files, evidence of Preston's fraternity's cheating ring, emails about paying people to take tests, even a shared drive full of old exams. Interesting, Eli said, his voice soft but firm. Because I've got some calls to make too. He continued to gather evidence, meticulously documenting Preston's misdeeds. He knew that exposing the cheating ring would not only hurt Preston, but also dismantle the system of privilege that allowed him to thrive. Just then, Trent and another fraternity brother burst into the lab, their faces grim. Preston, we need to talk, Trent said urgently. Preston glared at Eli, then followed his friends out of the lab. Eli knew that something was brewing, that Preston was planning his next move. Chapter 6. The Cheating Ring Unravels. Eli decided to strike first. He anonymously sent an email to Professor Harding, detailing the evidence of Preston's cheating ring. He included screenshots of incriminating emails, transcripts of secret conversations, and even a copy of the shared drive containing old exams. Professor Harding, a woman of integrity and unwavering principles, was appalled by the evidence. She immediately launched an investigation, interviewing students, reviewing documents, and questioning the members of Preston's fraternity. The investigation sent shockwaves through Crestwood. Students who had long suspected the existence of the cheating ring came forward with their own stories and evidence. The university administration, facing mounting pressure from students, faculty, and alumni, was forced to take action. Preston and his fraternity brothers were summoned to a disciplinary hearing. They denied the charges, claiming that the evidence was fabricated. But Professor Harding presented a compelling case, backed by irrefutable proof. The disciplinary committee, after a lengthy deliberation, found Preston and his fraternity brothers guilty of academic dishonesty. They were suspended from the university, stripped of their leadership positions, and ordered to complete community service. The news of Preston's downfall spread like wildfire. Students celebrated, faculty breathed a sigh of relief, and even some alumni expressed their satisfaction. The cheating ring had been exposed, and the system of privilege that had allowed it to thrive was beginning to crumble. Chapter 7. Social Media Fallout. But Preston wasn't finished yet. Desperate to salvage his reputation, he resorted to dirty tactics. He and his friends created a fake social media profile, posting edited photos and fabricated stories designed to make Eli look like a fraud. The profile accused Eli of cheating on his entrance exams, of plagiarizing his essays, and of bribing university officials to secure his scholarship. It was a classic attempt to discredit the victim, to shift the blame away from the perpetrators. Eli knew that he had to respond quickly to the false allegations. He contacted Clara Bellwether, the student newspaper editor, and asked her to publish an article debunking the lies. Clara, eager to support Eli, launched a full-scale investigation into the fake social media profile. She traced the IP address to Preston's fraternity house and uncovered evidence linking him to the creation and dissemination of the false information. Clara published her findings in a scathing article in the Crestwood Chronicle. The article exposed Preston's smear campaign, revealed his connection to the fake social media profile, and provided evidence of his long history of bullying and harassment. The article caused a public uproar. Students, faculty, and alumni condemned Preston's actions. The university administration, facing renewed pressure, launched another investigation into Preston's conduct. Preston, realizing that he was cornered, panicked. He tried to retract his statements, claiming that he had been hacked, but no one believed him. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Chapter 8. Parking Lot Confrontation. That afternoon, Eli found himself in a tense confrontation in the campus parking lot. Preston was waiting by his car, alone, his eyes filled with rage and desperation. "You think you've won?" Preston snarled, his voice shaking with anger. "My father will." Eli cut him off. "Write another check? Make some calls? That might have worked before, but times change." He pulled out his phone, showing Preston the trending hashtag Crestwood Cheaters. The story had gone viral, spreading across social media and even attracting the attention of local news outlets. Preston lunged forward, throwing a desperate punch. But Eli, anticipating the attack, simply stepped aside, letting Preston's momentum carry him straight into a puddle. The security cameras captured everything. Eli knew that the video would soon be circulating online, further damaging Preston's reputation. "You don't understand," Preston said, his voice cracking with emotion as he picked himself up from the puddle. "This was supposed to be my legacy. My father's name is on one of the buildings." Sarah, from the archives, stepped forward, holding her phone, recording the entire scene. "Funny you should mention that building," she said, her voice laced with irony. "Wait till people hear how your family got the money to donate it." Sarah revealed that Preston's family had made their fortune through unethical business practices, exploiting workers and engaging in environmental destruction. The revelation further tarnished Preston's image and exposed the hypocrisy of his privileged existence. Eli, seeing Preston's despair, felt a flicker of empathy. He knew that Preston was not inherently evil, but rather a product of his environment, a victim of the system of privilege that had warped his values. "Look," Eli said, offering Preston a hand up. "You've got two choices. Keep digging yourself deeper or start over. Do better. Be better." Chapter 9. Aftermath and Change. The next few days at Crestwood felt different. The cheating ring had been exposed, the bullies had been defeated, and the system of privilege was beginning to crumble. But the real change was happening in the quiet moments, in the subtle shifts in attitude and behavior. During lunch, Eli noticed that students who used to sit alone were joining bigger tables. Miguel was tutoring some freshmen in Spanish. Sarah was organizing a student committee to review the university's inclusion policies. It was as if everyone had been waiting for someone to stand up, to challenge the status quo, to inspire them to fight for what was right. You know what the craziest part is? Jessica, from a student newspaper, said to Eli. Some of Preston's own fraternity brothers came forward with more evidence. They were tired of it too, just too scared to say anything. Speaking of Preston, he hadn't disappeared. Instead, he was doing something nobody expected. He was actually showing up to study groups, doing his own work for the first time. He was learning to rely on his own abilities, rather than on the shortcuts and privileges that had defined his life. After class, Professor Harding pulled Eli aside. "You could have handled this differently," she said. "Could have fought fire with fire." Eli smiled. "My mom always said the best fighters know when not to throw a punch." He saw Preston in the hallway, heading to the library. Their eyes met, and there was something different there, not friendship, but something like respect. Eli realized that the true victory wasn't in defeating Preston, but in inspiring him to change, to become a better person. Chapter 10, Legacy of Change. A month later, Eli sat in the library, studying for his final exams. A freshman approached him, her eyes filled with nervousness. "Is it true," she asked, "what they say about how you change things?" Eli looked around the library at the diverse group of students studying together, at Preston actually helping someone with their homework, at Sarah organizing a diversity panel with the dean support. "I didn't change anything," he said. "We all did. Sometimes people just need to see that it's possible." He glanced at his phone, a new text from his mom. "Proud of you, baby. You fought smart, not hard." And that was really what this story was about. Not just karma or justice, but choosing how to fight your battles. It was about using your intellect, your courage, and your compassion to create a better world, one smart move at a time. It was about standing up to bullies, not with violence, but with truth, with empathy, and with unwavering determination. It was about proving that even the most entrenched systems of power can be challenged, that even the most privileged bullies can be brought to justice, and that even the most seemingly insurmountable obstacles can be overcome. Epilogue. Years later, Eli Vance would return to Crestwood University, not as a scholarship student struggling to fit in, but as a distinguished alumnus, invited to deliver the commencement address. He would tell his story, not as a tale of personal triumph, but as a testament to the power of collective action, to the transformative potential of empathy, and to the enduring importance of fighting for justice, one smart move at a time. He would remind the graduating class that true leadership lies not in wielding power, but in empowering others, and that the greatest legacy they can leave behind is a world that is more just, more equitable, and more compassionate than the one they inherited, and to never underestimate the power of one person to make a difference. Because, as he had learned at Crestwood University, even the most entrenched systems of power can be challenged. Even the most privileged bullies can be brought to justice, and even the most seemingly insurmountable obstacles can be overcome if we are willing to fight for what is right, one smart move at a time. And as he looked out at the sea of faces, he would see not just graduates, but future leaders, future innovators, and future agents of change, ready to take on the world and make it a better place, one smart move at a time. And he would smile, knowing that he had played a small part in their journey, and that the legacy of change he had helped to create at Crestwood University would continue to inspire generations to come.